Hello, everybody, and welcome. I'm so pleased to be able to join us from all over the world today. We hope you've got some high energy snacks and you're all settled in, ready to kind of go on our trekking adventure all around the globe today. So my name is Becky. I'm the head of sales for Explore, and I'm going to be your host for the next hour or so. So here's what you can expect from our trekking tours event today. We're going to give you a short intro into who we are, and then I'm going to welcome three colleagues who are going to transport you to some of the most exciting trekking destinations on offer. They'll tell you more about their experiences, as well as giving some key practical information on what to expect and when to visit as well. We'll finish with some time to answer your questions and to tell you about an exciting offer and a prize draw. Before we get started, a few tips to make sure everything runs as smoothly as possible. So everybody is automatically on mute, but we'd love you to make use of the chat and the Q&A features. I can see on the chat already some people letting us know where you're from. So thank you for that. Keep that coming. And also let us know if you've been on an Explorer adventure before, or if you've already done maybe some epic treks somewhere around the world. If you've got any questions that you'd like us to answer, please use the Q&A function. I've got a team of experts in the office today, including from my team, Eliza, who is just back from the Inca Trail, Sasha, who combined a workation with a trek to Everest Base Camp, like you do. And we've also got Matt from our IT team, who scaled Kili last year. So some fantastic experts on hand to answer all of those questions. Don't worry if you don't see your question answered. We're going to keep some back and we'll be answering those during a live Q&A at the end of today's session. If you do miss anything or you need to duck away, don't worry. We are recording the event and we'll be sharing the recording along with a summary of the most frequently asked questions. You'll get an email with the offer and also a link to the video by the end of this week. So before we start properly, some of you are going to know Explore really, really well, but there's also some of you who might not be as familiar with us. So we've run over 350 small group adventures to more than 100 countries worldwide. We've got classic discovery trips, walking, and then as well as cycling, polar and family tours. And all of these are with small groups. We have expert leaders, unforgettable experiences. We also have got a brand new collection of Explore Upgraded, which is everything that our customers know and love about an Explore holiday, and with upgraded stays to offer that little bit of extra comfort at the end of a long day's exploring. So why do people love to travel with us? And they really do. So many people coming back year after year. So on our trips, you'll see a mix of famous sites and hidden gems that others might miss, or they might not even know about. As travelers, we really want you to experience a place, not merely observe it. So we'll take you closer to the country, its culture and people. And it's really those kind of unscripted, spontaneous moments which you can't replicate. That's kind of what really sets apart our adventures. Our fabulous tour leaders, of course, use their expert insider knowledge and their local connections to really make the most out of unexpected opportunities. You might be invited to watch the sunrise from a lighthouse or to join a family Diwali celebrations. The tour leaders are always on hand to make sure that your trip runs smoothly and they take care of all the logistics. Our average group size is just 11 people, so it's big enough to meet like-minded people, but small enough to really get to the heart of a destination. Sustainability is at the heart of what we do, and we only work with partners who have the same values as we have. It's really, really important to us. We've got a Platinum Trusted Service Award from FIFO because our customer reviews are over 4.5 out of 5. And it's something that we're super proud of. And this year, we also became a B Corp certified business. So I'm delighted that I'm going to be joined by three of our product team legends this evening. We've got Carmel, Moore and Chris. They're going to be presenting and they're also part of the team that are going to be answering the questions you ask online. And we'll also bring them back for the Q&A near the end of the event. But before we hand it over to those guys, just want to talk about the kind of impact on local communities. So one of the highlights of travel is the people that you meet along the way. Meeting the communities, seeing different ways of life. And this is especially so on a walking trip where you really kind of get to meet people as you're kind of following your path. Often the connections made are some of the first memories we recall when we're thinking back about a holiday. And that's why we love picking accommodation, places to eat, and things to do that really give you the local experience. And of course, our tour leaders, again, are there to really help you get the best out of your journey. Travel should be a two-way exchange, though, and we want the communities we visit to benefit from the trips just as much as we benefit from our travels. We want to be welcome where we're visiting, not just have the locals be okay with us going along. We want to be able to make sure that we're visiting in a way that ensures that tourism benefits both them and their community. We've got even more power to do this through the Explore Foundation. Through the charity, we're able to fund initiatives that improve education, healthcare, access to employment, support, conservation, and loads more. The ideal is where we can offer support to get an initiative started, and its design means that it can be self-sustained. And this is exactly what we found with Lahara. It's a brilliantly led community initiative, and it offers an alternative employment to the people in the Khumbu region of Nepal. It's a place where typically the main jobs are as trek porters and guides, and both these roles tend to be inaccessible to women. On this iconic trekking route where our new Everest Base Camp tour passes through, Lahara has set up a sports massage clinic offering weary trekkers a good way to recover on a rest day and offering the community a different employment opportunity. Last year, we funded the training for 3 therapists, and we'll be supporting 3 more next year. But the best thing is if you do this trek, you can support them directly by having a sports massage and easing your muscles when you're doing the trek, and supporting a brilliant business when you're kind of doing that. So win-win. So let's take a look at our top bucket list adventures for 2025. We'll be discovering the famous Inca Trail in Peru, the Lemosho trek up Mount Kilimanjaro in Tanzania, and last but not least the epic Everest Base Camp trek in Nepal. We're going to cover history, culture, and local food, and we'll also talk about what you can expect when deciding to join one of our tours to these places. So I'm going to hand you over to Carmel now, who's going to take you to the Andes. Over to you, Carmel.
Hi everyone, really nice to be here today talking about the Inca Trail. Peru's very close to my heart. I'm lucky enough to have been to Machu Picchu twice and Peru several times, and it is really genuinely a place that I could travel back to again and again. So here at Explore, we do have 2 and 3 week trips available that take in the Inca Trail. But today I'll be talking about our 9-day trip that concentrates solely around Cusco and the Inca Trail. So it really is for those of you who properly want to go to Peru to do the hike. So if we move along to the next slide, I'm going to concentrate solely on the hiking aspect of the trip, rather than talking about any other cultural highlights of Peru. That's purely time related, really. I know that that's what probably a lot of you want to hear about today. What is the hiking like? What is the camping like? What's a day on the trail? It's not to say that there's no cultural highlights of Peru. There are many. We just simply don't have time to cover them all. So today I will solely and purely be concentrating on the trek. And it's also really key to mention that we do operate an Amazon extension, actually, which is 3 nights in a jungle lodge in the Tambopata Reserve area out of a place called Puerto Maldonado. So if 9 days does seem a little short, then you can add 3 nights in this jungle lodge to the end of your trip and make it a 2-week holiday as well. So the Inca Trail isn't like the other 2 trips that we'll be talking about today. It's not like Kili and Everest Base Camp, where the end goal is about reaching the top. Machu Picchu can be visited without hiking, can be visited by taking the train and taking a shuttle bus from the train station. But for my money, arriving along the Inca Trail is the best way to get into the site. I have done it both ways. Looking down from the Sun Gate is one of the most sort of emotional sights, and I'm quite a cynic, so that's quite a big thing from me. walking directly into the site from that high vantage point. You're still quite a distance away the first time that you can catch a glimpse of it. So you get all the views surrounding it, and it gives you an idea of the sheer enormity of what the Incas achieved with building this city in this really inaccessible place on top of a mountain. It's so impressive, and you capture that the best by accessing the site via the Inca Trail. So coming up in other ways is possible, and you still get an amazing experience of Machu Picchu and the site itself, but you don't get that feeling of approaching it from afar like the Incas would have done. So I'll take you through the flow of the itinerary first. We do the hike in 4 days, which is quite a classic way to do the Inca Trail. There are shorter 3-day and maybe slightly longer versions. You drive up from Cusco typically to kilometer 82 or kilometer 88. And that's a place called Pisacucho. That's where you start the trail. So you've got 4 days in which you'll summit some high passes and enter the site of Machu Picchu via the Sun Gate. And the itinerary and landscape is surprisingly diverse. So the first 2 days, it covers between 2,700 and 3,800 meters. And that's a classic cloud forest environment. Between 2,500 and 3,500 meters is cloud forest. So the vegetation's quite biodiverse, actually quite thick. It's a bit of a surprise and possibly not what people are imagining. Lots of ferns, orchids, bromeliads. And then after 3,500 meters, you get into that harsher mountain environment. So it's more sparse, much less greenery, but more epic views. And they're kind of the pictures that you might have seen of the Inca Trail. And with this biodiversity and diversity of terrain, you can expect the days to be quite different, really. So you've got dirt paths, you've got uneven stone paths, you've got a handful of bridges on day 1 and day 2, you're in the lower areas, and you've got a lot of stone steps. I really would encourage anyone wanting to do the Inca Trail to get some training on stair walking. So include that in your preparation for the trip. An Explores tour is structured so that day 3 is the big day. So we cover the 2 big passes, which you can see from this picture, which is Wami Manuska, famously Dead Woman's Pass, the highest point of the trail at just over 4,200 meters, and Runcurakai Pass, the second highest point at 4,000. We've had 2 warm-up days to get to this point, plus acclimatization in Cusco. So by this point, everyone is ready, everyone is fit, everyone is prepared for these 2 days. And it is a longer day. It's 8 hours roughly, it's 15 kilometers, but this is really cracking the back of the tour. Then you've got a really nice run into Machu Picchu. And you can see that actually the distances aren't very far compared to what you might be walking at lower altitudes. Like all of the trips today, this trip is really about altitude and mountain walking. And we take things really slowly to make sure that everyone can get to Machu Picchu, the goal of the trip. So as well as the diversity in the terrain, there are also other Inca ruins along the route. It's not just the end at Machu Picchu. And again, this is something that surprises people. There is a ruin that's quite famous called Huayna, which people may have heard of. That's really famous because that's the final big one before you get into Machu Picchu. It's only about another 3 hours walking from there. But if you think that the Incas had to actually walk this trail, there isn't just one Inca Trail. They extended thousands of miles out of Cusco in every direction, even into Ecuador, for example. But there are resting places. So there are old outposts that they believe were resting places. There were terraces that served as agricultural outposts for Machu Picchu. There are ceremonial centers and so many more. So it's really every day will bring more sights, more views, and the tour leader, which of course will be with you as on every Explore tour, will bring all this history out while you're hiking. So just move on to the camp. A key part of any iconic trekking trip is where are you going to sleep? How comfortable are you going to be after you're hiking for up to 15 kilometers a day? So the tents are spacious two-man tents. Just a small note is that a single tent isn't included as part of our normal single supplement. If you wished to have a single room, that is only for the Cusco Hotel, as it depends on the availability of both the tent and the porters, but it can be organised and usually is very straightforward to organise at a very small additional cost if you do want that. We include sleeping mats, but we ask everyone to bring their own sleeping bags. We find that usually people prefer that. However, we can rent one as well. So if you'd rather rent one, we can arrange that at again at a small additional cost. It's about $50 US. In the campsite, we have a chemical toilet each night. Two of the campsites actually have their own fixed toilet facilities. They don't usually have toilet paper in there, while we do, have it in our chemical toilets. That is a good thing to pack, toilet paper, again, on any trekking trip. So two of the campsites have fixed toilets, fixed sinks. The porters heat up water every morning and every afternoon or evening when you get into the camp. So you'll have a bowl of hot water waiting for you in the morning to wash, and you'll have a bowl of hot water, which is very nice and welcome after a day's of hiking. There are no, let's say, official showers, but the two campsites with fixed facilities, they do have like a very small shower block, but it's got no real good plumbing. So sometimes a hose pipe can be attached to the sink tap and hooked over one of the cubicles. It's really cold water. If you're desperate, it might be quite refreshing, but I would normally tell people that there aren't really any showers. The hot water that the porters boil up for you in the morning and in the afternoon is your washing facility for those 4 days. But as you can see from the pictures, we camp in some really amazing locations during the trek, and waking up to those views is pretty spectacular. And to touch on the food, it's really good and very plentiful, which I think people would hopefully expect from a trekking trip. That the point is to give you energy to do the trekking. So breakfast is something usually like quinoa porridge, waffles, pancakes, the fruit, tea, coffee, quite hearty, bread, jam, that kind of thing. We have mid-morning snacks that are packed up and provided to put in your day sack. Lunch is always a hot lunch that's cooked en route. The porters break everything down in the morning. They go ahead of the group and they set up a lunch spot along the way. Again, usually in a really spectacular location. And dinner is a 3-course meal with soup, fish or meat, and veg, and a dessert. Again, tea or coffee. We usually have an afternoon snack when we arrive into camp as well. Dietary requirements can be fully catered for with advance notice. So if you tell Explore that you have a dietary requirement, whether it's gluten-free, vegetarian, vegan, dairy-free, we can cater to that. If it's very, very specific, please have a conversation with our sales team. But our team in Peru are really, really excellent at making sure that substitutes are available for everyone. And I think it's worth, on that note, talking about the team in Peru that you'll be with. So you'll have a team of porters who are really amazing people. And what they do is sort of above and beyond what anyone could manage. There's actually an annual, I think they still do it post-pandemic, but an annual race, a porter's race along the Inca Trail from the start of the Inca Trail to Machu Picchu. And the porters generally do it in about 3 hours, which puts 4 days into perspective. But they break down everyone's camp in the morning and they'll pass you on the hike. You'll have set off, they'll break down your tent, you'll have a porter each, then they'll pass you. The cook and the assistant cook are there setting up your meal, waiting for you for your lunch stop. They'll break that down, they'll pass you, and they'll have your tent ready for you when you get into camp. They're just superb, and they work really well together as a team. The tour leader for Explore is also a trekking guide, trained and licensed, and we have a trekking assistant for over 8 people. It is a 16-person maximum group size. And I think it's worth mentioning as well, when you arrive into Machu Picchu, and I'm not even going to talk about the visit to Machu Picchu, which could be another session in itself because there's so much to talk about, but in Machu Picchu, there are 2 optional hikes available. One of them is called Machu Picchu Mountain. One of them is called Huayna Picchu. There's a similar-ish view on the left-hand side of your screen there that sort of denotes Machu Picchu Mountain with Huayna Picchu in the background. That's the famous triangular peak. The picture on the right-hand side is a view from Huayna Picchu looking down at Machu Picchu. You can see that you ascend quite high on that trek. So we can book permits for these optionally. You can book them with us before you travel. And they're not guided, they're not tour led. They do require us to book a permit into Machu Picchu site and a permit for the hike. But there's fixed times every day. So there's always a stream of people going at a certain time of day. There'll be lots of people there. But they're great to get other perspectives on the site, as well as the sun gate, the view. Just getting a view from up high is really, I would really recommend it for anyone, even people who decide to go to Machu Picchu without hiking. I would recommend doing one of these hikes because they give you just such a great perspective. Again, the enormity of it all. Huayna Picchu is not for those with a fear of heights at all. It's very high, very vertiginous. Machu Picchu and the Inca Trail, sorry, can be done if you're scared of heights, but you can feel free to have a conversation with our sales team about it. But I traveled with someone who was quite scared of heights, and the paths are pretty wide. Mainly, there are just a couple of little areas that might spark a little bit of fear, but the tour leaders are so good, and the trekking guides are so good. They can look after you. So that's really all about the trail. Just to briefly touch on Cusco, finally, the main thing I want to mention is that Explore's trip, unlike most other operators, we have 2 full days in Cusco. So you land there, you have 2 full days there, and then you start trekking. And it's really good for acclimatization. And also it's just a great place to be. So I highly recommend additional nights in Cusco, but this sets the scene. You're landing at 3,300 meters. You have 2 full acclimatization days. Then you go down to the start of the trek at 2,700. So that's a pretty decent acclimatization profile, and everyone's pretty ready for it by that point. So that's all on the Inca Trail, Whistle Stop Tour. And next up is my colleague Mort, who's our Africa product manager, and I'll be back at the end for any questions.
Thank you very much, Carmel. Wow, what a trip. I'll be talking to you guys about one of our Kilimanjaro trips. So Explore offering 2 different trips to Kilimanjaro, and today I'm talking about the Lemosho trip. I've personally been working with Kilimanjaro and Africa for many years and have a very personal relationship with the mountain, having lived in Tanzania for more than a year, and have climbed the mountain numerous times in years past. So the Lemosho trek, which we're talking about today, is by far our most popular trip. It is obviously Kilimanjaro being just under 6,000 meters, so 5,895 meters above sea level. have a whole range of different routes around the mountain. In mostly we talk about 7 or 8 different routes. The Lemosho route is the route that ascends the mountain from the left, or from west if you are looking at a compass. The reason why we've chosen the Lemosho route, first of all, is that it offers the highest summit success rate of all the routes. I can't throw an amazing number at you, as obviously it all depends on who you ask and how they define those success rates. But generally speaking, it is somewhere between the 80 and 95%, depending on provider. As you obviously know, all the camps as we kind of move our way up the mountain are wild camps. It kind of allows us to be much more flexible and to kind of adjust depending on group dynamic, group capability, and fitness as we go along. As you'll see on the map on the left side here, we will start out in Moshi, and then we'll move up to the summit. And as it shows here, we do slowly move up the mountain, and in fact we don't actually go over the 4,000 meter limit or barrier, as you want, until day 5 or 6 on the mountain. So providing us with a really good acclimatization phase, making sure that we do our very best for our guests to reach the summit. Another reason why we've chosen the Lemosho route is because we personally find it much more diverse than some of the other routes of the mountain. It is less used. Only around 20% of all the summits are done from the west, or done on the Lemosho route. And then I think, lastly, before moving on to my more colourful slides, I think, as it shows here, I think that one of the key reasons why we really like this route is that most of our trekking team, most of our guides, most of our porters have climbed Kili more than 100 times from this particular route. Our head guide, Jimmy, who I personally climbed with before, has climbed it for the 500th time this summer. So a very experienced team on the ground. I will introduce you to a few of the friendly faces later on in this presentation. If you want to extend your stay in Tanzania, we obviously have the, I guess, another bucket list item, a fantastic East African safari. Or if you just will like some white sands and crystal clear water, then Zanzibar might be your best bet. Let's move on to the next slide. So I mentioned before, this is generally considered one of the easier routes up the mountain. I would state that there are no easy routes per se up the mountain. Obviously, everything comes with a bit of a challenge. But as I said before, it's generally less crowded, meaning obviously less congestion and a much more peaceful experience on the mountain. It is, as you can see from these photos on the screen at the moment, it is a trekking experience. It is not climbing, although it does sound much better when you say you've climbed Kilimanjaro. It does not require any technical ability, nor does it require any previous climbing experience. However, with 4 to 7 hours of hiking per day, it does obviously require that you have some kind of base fitness, but you definitely by no means need to be an Ironman to summit it. We do from Explore grade this as a 6 out of 6 in terms of how difficult it is or how hard and challenging it is. However, that is very much due to the number of days you're on the mountain, plus the obvious challenge of altitude. One of my personal favorite parts of climbing Kilimanjaro on this particular route is very much the camping. And it's not the kind of camping I remember from my Boy Scout days. This is probably the closest you get to feeling a true explorer or true adventurer. Your amazing team on the ground will sort everything out for you. They'll carry your tent up. They'll carry your sleeping mats up. They'll carry the toilet tents, the mess tents, all the cooking equipment, and everything is being carried up to your camps. And as I said before, we do have the flexibility of adjusting our campsite locations from departure to departure, depending on where the wind is, depending on how the weather patterns are. But as a general rule of thumb, the map we have on our webpage designates the altitude of where the camp will be set up. 2 of the camps on the mountain currently have fixed toilets. But similar to what Kamel talked about before in Peru, we don't have any running water up there, so there's no big hot showers. But your team will do everything is in the power to kind of provide you with your hot water in the morning and clean drinkable water in camp as well when you get in after a long day on the path. If I can get the next slide, please. Fantastic. I mentioned our amazing team earlier. They are truly the unsung heroes of any trekking trip, not just on Kili. Gone are the days where summiting a mountain was just a matter of one climber and one mountain guide. I think regardless of team size, you're guaranteed to feel like you're a part of a team. Our maximum team size on these tours are 12. But irrespective of whether there's 2 of you or there's 5 of you or there is 10 or 12 of you, you will very, very quickly feel like you're part of a team on the mountain. Normally, the team consists of you guys plus a number of mountain guides. Mountain guides on the mountain usually come in the ratio of 1 to 3. So for each 3 Western climbers or hikers, there'll be one qualified mountain guide. All the guides are qualified under the Tanzanian Mountaineering Association program, and they're all Westernly first aid trained. They'll be carrying extra oxygen. They'll be carrying Gamma bags, which is like a big plastic sausage you can be put in, and they can artificially adjust the air pressure within should anyone encounter any issues with the altitude. On top of that, we had the guides, we had the assistant guides. On top of that, there's also a minimum of 2 to 3 porters per person, meaning that all you will need to carry on the mountain is your day pack, your wet weather gear, your lunch pack, which we'll talk about in just a minute, hiking poles, if you bring them with you, and anything else you'll need during your 4 to 7 hour hike up the mountain. There'll also be a number of additional group porters carrying all the group kit up, all the camping kit, as I said before. There'll be a handful of cooks and kitchen hands, some assistant guides. So if you are a group of 12, as I said, which is our max number, the group might very well be 40 or 45 people strong overall, creating a real sense of belonging, a real sense of a proper expedition. I think it's worth saying here that all the porters, all the cooks, all the camp hands we're using are from the local area. So all the money we pay them goes straight into the local economy, and they're all guaranteed to be paid a fair wage because they're part of what's called KPAP, or Kilimanjaro Association of Porters, which is really, really important in this part of the world, as well as Tanzania. And now onto something a little bit different. I know this picture might not do justice. However, I just mentioned the expedition team with the cooks and the kitchen hands. However, I think quite often many people underestimate what kind of magic can be cooked up at altitude. Remember, the higher you move up at altitude, your appetite will drop as well. So it's really important that food doesn't just look inviting, that it tastes nice, it smells nice, and that it provides you with calories, protein, and the flavors that makes you want to eat more of it. As I said in my introduction, I've been on Kili many times, and I'm always amazed at how creative the cooks are on the mountain. I've had anything from pizza, fresh popcorn, homemade tomato soup, jacket potatoes, even fried chicken and beef curry. So the world is truly your oyster. And have you got any allergies or any food groups you can't consume, then as long as you advise us in advance, we'll be able to cater for that as well. both vegan, vegetarian diets are frequent visitors on the mountain without any problems. And lastly, I just want to remind you that obviously, whilst reaching the summit of Africa is the cherry on the cake, it's hard to take that away from it. It is obviously the main objective. I think, you know, spending the quality time on the mountain, getting to know your amazing team, and kind of soak up the entire journey are all part of this bucket list item. And all of these will be memories you'll remember for as long as you remember your 30 to 40 minutes on the summit. That was a very, very quick whistle top tour as well, and I will pass you on to my colleague, Chris.
Wow, thank you, Morts. That looks amazing. So hi there, my name's Chris. I'm one of the product managers here at Explore, and it's my pleasure to take you on a trip up Everest Base Camp today. So just wanted to talk you through the trip itself, just a brief overview on what we are doing. So this trip is 22 days in length, and starting at Kathmandu, we drive overland to Saleri, where we disembark and head out on foot up the Himalayas, all the way up to Everest Base Camp. So why this itinerary? And why overland? Because it is a little different to a lot of the other Everest itineraries out there. So we used to run a Everest Base Camp itinerary around about 10 years ago. But in 2013, all Nepali airlines were placed on the UK aviation blacklist due to safety concerns and following a number of incidents. And at the time, it wasn't really possible to drive into the Khumbu Valley. So unfortunately, we had to drop the trip. However, recent improvements in the local infrastructure has meant that we can now drive into the lower Khumbu region, and that once again means that we can offer this amazing bucket list trek, this incredible area, but with an extra twist, with some extra time walking there through the lower Khumbu Valley and a little bit of a four-wheel drive adventure to get there too. So just to expand a little bit more on the driving and on not flying. So in general, Explore choose not to fly in Nepal, not just for this particular trip, but we don't fly anywhere in Nepal. This picture here on the left is actually a picture of Lukla Airport, colloquially known as the most dangerous airport in the world on account of the very short runway clinging to the side of quite a high mountain, and in fact only small planes can land there because it's such a short runway. But that notwithstanding, as I mentioned, that all Nepal airlines have been placed on the UK air safety list since 2013. And despite regular revisits and re-audits and whatnot, they are all still on there. And really, what does that mean? Well, that is kind of a reflection of the airlines not meeting the safety standards that we have here in the UK for things like airport facilities, maintenance, aircraft fleet, etc., etc. And we do know that several operators do choose to fly in Nepal, and some pay for their own independent audits to be carried out to help kind of choose which airline to use. But for us, anyway, the fact still remains that no airline has been yet to be removed from this list, and there are unfortunately still air incidents that occur each year in Nepal. So we have chosen to continue not to fly. Ultimately, I guess there's one thing we care more about than providing an incredible experience, and that's providing a safe one. And at the moment, we just still don't see it as a safe option. So moving on to the route itself. Now, the added bonus of not flying takes us on the lesser trotted route. So we're likely to see far fewer trekkers in this lower region than the when we get up higher with the rest of them. So the trip starts out on a 4-wheel drive out of Kathmandu, and that's east into the foothills. Now the road is kind of part tarmacked, and then that soon gives way to a fairly bumpy but fun and rewarding drive up to Saleri. And that total drive time is about 9 to 10 hours along this route. And then the first few days from this starting point takes us all through these small lower villages. Now, at this point, we're well below the tree line, so it's really beautiful. You've got the walks are through heavily forested trails. You're going past rice paddies, lots of like agricultural fields, and through plenty of small villages inhabited by the numerous minority communities that all pocket this region. It's also worth mentioning as well that this particular part of the Khumbu Valley is also well known for its rhododendron forests. So if you travel in the spring, then some of these forests just explode into life with beautiful pinks and reds and lots of colours. As we get a bit further up into the valley, by the time we reach Lukla and then on to Phakding, we'll be on the main Everest route, and it will change. You'll see lots of other trekkers, Sherpas, yaks, of course, and just the most incredible scenery as far as the eye can see. The route follows the Khumbu River up the valley for the most part, and it crisscrosses over these big suspension bridges, which you saw a little bit of in that video actually. So you traverse a couple of these suspension bridges along the way, incredible views. And I think the interesting thing about this trip, perhaps in comparison to the others, is you're going through pockets of civilization as you travel. So the trip takes you to places like Namche Bazaar, which is in the bottom right hand corner here, which is the home of the Sherpa community. We stop off at Dingboche, which is where we get the opportunity to visit the Lahara Foundation that Becky mentioned before, where some of the trekkers will get the chance to have a well-earned sports massage and rest their legs. You'll see some amazing monasteries like this one here, Tangboche Monastery, where often you'll get a chance to witness some of the ceremonies here. So you'll see quite a lot of monks chanting and singing and things like that. And you'll also hear perhaps of some local legends. So an example of that is in the village of Kumjung. It is said that they house the scalp of a yeti. And I remember I was taken into a dark room. You can't get too close, and you'll see a sort of small, hairy scalp locked away in a box behind a glass cabinet. So lots of local interesting things to see as well. But the sort of pinnacle of the trip really is to get up to Everest Base Camp. Now, what is Everest Base Camp? Essentially, it is a man-made structure, a man-made village of tents, really, built on a rocky part of the Khumbu Glacier, right in the shadow of Everest. And it is completely a temporary structure. It's put up around about March time each season, and then deconstructed again in sort of June time, just before the monsoon, and essentially is the base from where all of the climbers set off on their journey to scale the peak of Mount Everest itself. So if you visit in the spring months, you'll see a hubbub of activity, lots of climbers. Like you can see in this picture, you can see all the tents laid out in front of these two trekkers all along Glacier, and you'll see lots of these kind of scenes. But Everest Base Camp doesn't really offer the greatest views of Everest itself because it kind of sits in the shadow, and it also feels probably a touch anticlimactic, ending in the sort of plateau area. So for that reason, we actually climb up Kalapatar. And at 5,645 meters, Kalapatar offers incredible panoramic views of the surrounding 8,000 meter peaks like Everest, like you see there, the South Col, Lhotse, Nuptse, Pumori as well. So you get these incredible panoramic views, but it also kind of offers that sense of achievement, having summited an actual peak on the walk and having a high point of the trek. So I just wanted to talk a little bit about the other elements of the trek itself. So believe it or not, this is actually a picture of me many years ago. Sadly, having done this trip in my younger years, making the outrageous decision to wear an England football shirt the day I summited. I'll always forget that one. But why I wanted to share this is it's not me, but it's the crew. So much as Morts and Carmel have said, it's all about it's not just about the place that you visit and the trek itself. It's about the people that you meet along the way, and the crew are incredible. So generally, how it will work is you'll have your explore tour leader, dedicated explore tour leader, who will be a local Nepalese leader. And then with that, you will have a Siddhar, which is like a head trek guide. You'll have the Sherpa crew, so a number of people that walk alongside you, walk with you, and then you'll have a team of porters that carry the bags, that prepare all the lunches and whatnot. And as I mentioned, they are an incredible and equally awesome part of the experience, helping you through any tough moments, providing hot drinks and snacks, setting up amazing lunches, and also kind of providing that local insight into the region. So their sort of the culture and the history and the way the Sherpa insight. And generally, when we read, the feedback from the trips, a lot of people pick out the trek staff as a highlight in themselves, and many people say, they just couldn't have done it without them. Something else that I just wanted to talk about as well is the tea houses, so accommodation along the way. So different to the Inca Trail and to Kili, we stay in tea houses rather than camp on this trip. Now, tea houses offer quite a sort of a homely feel, kind of like a bed and breakfast kind of feel, but obviously being high up in the mountains, they are quite a bit more basic. Some people describe it like indoor camping, and I think that's probably quite fair. There are no cars in this region. There's no way to transport materials around. So a lot of the buildings are built from materials that are around them. So, they're not insulated. They don't have plasterboard or anything like that. The rooms can be quite basic, but comfortable. And the rooms aren't heated. But they have a heated communal area, as you can see here, and that is where the meals are taken. And that's where all the trekkers get together in the evenings. Often they'll be playing cards or chatting after a day's walking, and there's really good kind of camaraderie amongst the walkers as well. And I just wanted to talk about toilets as part of this as well. So toilets are usually outside the tea houses, not plumbed in. And I was actually just catching up with my colleague Sasha, who just returned very recently from this, and things have improved quite a bit. And now most of the toilets are Western style flushing toilets, and there are showers available. Hot water is infrequent, but there are showers available in some of the places as well. And food, obviously, food is a big part of the trek as well. A lot of meals are included in this trip, and all the breakfasts and dinners are provided in the tea houses. And you get a really varied mix of food, things like Nepalese food, like momos in the picture here, which are like dumplings, but also, very carbohydrate heavy things like pasta, rice, and chips, Western things. And really, you're not going to go hungry. I think a lot of people are worried when they're doing a trek like this and they're burning lots of calories. They want to make sure that they're able to replace those calories and get enough energy, and you're not going to have to worry about that. And something else I just wanted to mention as well is the water. So boiled water is provided for drinking, but as water boils at a lower temperature altitude, you need to add sterilization tablets into it. But better still is one of the water to go bottles that we mention in all of our trip notes that include a water filter. Then you don't need to worry about any of that. You can just fill it up with any water source, and it provides clean, easy drinking water. And I just wanted to also touch on altitude and acclimatization in general. So the trail itself from Lukla is a fairly worn path, and it's been hiked by many people before us. So it's pretty well refined in terms of the appropriate amount of ascent each day to get to the top fairly comfortably. And when we ran this trip 10 or so years ago, it had a really high success rate, and rarely did we have in any instances of people having to turn around because of altitude. But this new route offers an even better acclimatization as we start lower and we trek for longer, which kind of allows your body to acclimatize more gently and prepares it better for when we get higher up the mountain. And in the rare event that somebody does develop altitude sickness, then it goes without saying our guys are highly trained at spotting symptoms early, and we do carry oxygen tanks in case of emergencies. But as I say, it's not at all common on this kind of trip. And the last thing I just wanted to kind of cover off really is how fit do you have to be? Well, on this trip, reasonably fit, I think, is probably the answer. This is the longest trekking trip that we do here at Explore, and whilst the actual walking itself probably isn't the toughest or the highest, it's just the number of walking days that we do consecutively means that it's one of the tougher treks that we do. With that said, I think if you're relatively active, fit and healthy, and you build up a good training plan 3 to 4 months out, then most people should have really no issue. So that is Everest Base Camp. Just one other thing I wanted to mention is when to go as well. So there are 2 seasonalities. Generally, it runs in the sort of shoulder seasons of the spring and the autumn, avoiding the cold weather of the winter and the monsoon of the summer. Spring is really good if you like this. If you like plenty of spring flowers, and you also want to see the climbing season, the activity around climbing. October and November, slightly better if you want something a little bit quieter, and also generally is thought to have slightly clearer days as well after those monsoon rains. So that's not it. We do have some other trekking trips that we just wanted to mention. Other than the big bucket list hitters, we've got some fantastic trekking trips around the world. A couple of really popular bucket list treks that we have in Europe are the Tour de Mont Blanc, very popular at the moment, and of course the pilgrimage that is the Camino de Santiago. Over in Morocco, we've got the highest peak in North Africa, the Toubkal climb, and of course we've got the Walk the Great Wall of China. And that's me. I will hand back to Becky. Thanks, guys.
Thank you so much. Yeah, massive thanks there to Carmel, Moore and Chris. I've attended quite a lot of these events. I don't remember toilets having been talked about quite so much, but I think it's probably at the forefront of everybody's minds when they're camping. But also just how important those porters and the Sherpas are on any of these treks. If you can't wait to start planning your trip, we'd love to talk to you about our tours. So get in touch with us, or obviously you can also go via your preferred travel agent. So still to come this evening, there have been lots of questions coming through and the team have been busy answering those, but we have saved a few of them and we're going to talk about those now. And then after that, one of you will also be selected as our kind of at random to win our prize draw. So I'm going to welcome back Carmel, Moore and Chris and ply them with questions that you've been asking. Hi, guys. Excellent. Right. I'm going to kick off by a question for all of you. Do any of you have a kind of great story about a porter or anybody that you've met whilst you've been trekking on any of these epic quests?
Carmel's laughing like she's got something.
Yeah, she's definitely got something, hasn't she?
Oh, I'd love to have a very specific one. I actually, when I climbed Kili, that was when the porters for me really came alive. And it's not really a story, but me and my in Kilimanjaro, you have 1 porter each because they're carrying your tent and your bag, and you'd arrive in camp and your porters are waiting for you to take you to your tent, to show you where your tent is because they've put it up. And me and my tent mate would be avidly searching out our porter every single day. Like, where is he? We need our tent. We've got to soak our feet. He was the best. He was the best guy. Such a kind person, so friendly. It was just so nice to come into camp at the end of quite a long day trekking and see just see a smiling, friendly face, and he was just like endlessly patient with us. Really, really lovely, lovely person. Yeah.
Amazing. And how about for Chris or Mort?
Yeah, I mean, I had one day on the Everest trail where I wasn't feeling too good, and I had a Sherpa called Karma who just took me under his wing and just helped me along, literally dragged me along that day. In fact, supported me, and yeah, felt much better the next day. But we're just so grateful. I think that's where they really come into their own when you sort of you get yourself into a bit of a downer, and they're able to just pick you back up and help you along, and yeah, they're just fantastic.
Amazing. Absolutely amazing. And Mort, not to cut you off, have you got anybody that particularly sticks
Yeah.
out?
I'll probably, get slightly back in time really to one of the first times I was in Kili, where we did the big Red Nose Day tour. I was
Yeah.
one of the leaders, and then this is seeing the team coming together, carrying these, goodness know how many tons of media equipment, and seeing how, how when you really work together as a team that you can bring, so much positivity, and yeah, just an incredible experience being part of seeing people work so closely together from two, yes, very very different cultures, and with the same objective in mind.
Amazing. And sticking with you, just because you mentioned equipment, for trekking up Kili, I'm guessing there's some pretty specialist equipment that's needed. Can you hire any trekking equipment in Tanzania, or do you have to take it all with you?
Yes, so our ground agent or local ground agent in Moshi, which is like the capital of the Kilimanjaro region, has a wide variety of kit, ranging from sleeping bags to down jackets and llama beanies. So it's a very good selection. However, like with everything else, no clothes is more comfortable than your own clothes. So I think bring what you have, and the rest of it you can rent on site. Before anyone climbs up Kili, there is a very thorough kit check. Quite often that could take 1, 2, 3 hours, depending on the group size. And no one is allowed to kind of leave the gates without having adequate kit. So even if you think you have a waterproof coat and it turns out not to be as waterproof as required, you will be able to find a better solution on the ground, really.
Nice. No, that's interesting. Is it Chris and Carmel, is there something similar for the Inca Trail and for Everest Base Camp as well? With that kind of a little bit of a safety net, I suppose, as far as just making sure you're not taking anything that's not suitable.
Yeah, for sure. So there's in Kathmandu, there's quite a famous area, famous with backpackers and overlanders from back in the day, called Tamil, and that's where a lot of people will go to pick up a lot of their kit. You can rent kit, you can buy kit as well, quite inexpensively there, and it's a variety of kind of stuff, but a lot of it is good quality, and yeah, you can certainly take it up on the trail with you.
Nice. And in Cusco, Carmel?
Yeah, so Cusco's the trekking capital of Peru, and it's certainly got more than enough scope for finding good kit. We also have access to renting kit in an emergency, but we can't really guarantee that. So, but some people, if it's really an emergency situation, like their trekking poles got lost in the airport or something like that, it's probably also quite key to mention that in the Inca Trail, definitely recommended trekking poles, but they can't have points on. They've got to have rubber caps on the end, because of the ancient trail that you're walking on.
And that's a lot of people walking along that trail.
Yes.
And question, keeping with you, Carl, is it possible to add on Rainbow Mountain as well to the trip?
So for two of our trekking trips, let's say, we've got a 2-week and a 3-week. Yes, we can organise Rainbow Mountain as an additional trek, which is like a day trek from Cusco. For the week-long Peru trip, we don't really organise it because the days that you have in Cusco are before you start the
Mhm.
Inca Trail. They're acclimatization days, and Rainbow Mountain is too much to do when you've just touched down at altitude. And at the end of the trip, you get back to Cusco, you have one night, and then you leave. So it's on the 9-day trip. Rainbow Mountain isn't really an option. Sorry. Yeah.
Cool. And Chris, have you got a favorite part of the Everest Base Camp routes? And Amy in our marketing team wants to know, was it the Yeti scalp?
Yeah, well, that was part of it. Yeah, so that certainly was it was an interesting experience. But I think Namche Bazaar actually is just an incredible place. There's a an atmosphere about the place. There's a buzz of around it. So you've got this big Tibetan market that comes out. It's also got a number of it's got an Irish bar, which is a bit strange, but it's where a lot
They're
of
everywhere.
they are everywhere, and it's sort of a place where most people tend not to drink when they're going up the mountain because that can affect your acclimatization. But on the way down, you'll usually get groups of trekkers having a celebratory drink, shall we say, in Namche. So there's always a good atmosphere there, and that's where I would recommend
Amazing.
as my favorite place.
And last question, kind of open to you all, just because I really liked the question from the last event that we did, and it's kind of related to our Four Corners book club that we've launched. Any great kind of book recommendations for these 3 areas?
I'd like to recommend a book by a travel writer called Dervla Murphy.
That's
Dervla
right.
Murphy.
Yep.
She's an Irish writer. It's called 8 Feet in the Andes. She's written loads of great travel books. There's an excellent one that she's done in the Himalayas as well.
Mm-hmm.
But 8 Feet in the Andes is about her young daughter, who I think is about 10 from memory,
Yep.
and a mule trekking all the way across Peru from
Amazing.
Lima. They buy a mule in Lima and trek, and she takes a 10-year-old daughter, and it's in the 70s or 80s, so
Wow.
a long time ago. It's really, really good book.
So cool. And from Chris or Mort?
I think I'll probably be slightly alternative here, but the book Some Bees on Kilimanjaro.
Mm-hmm.
It's not as surreal as it sounds. It's by Tim Ward, which is a more of a diary style book, but absolutely incredible. Really highlighting this personal journey you go through in life.
Yeah.
And he summited Kilimanjaro with his, I think, his 19 or 20-year-old son. So yeah,
Amazing.
highly recommended.
Cool. And Chris, I might put you on the spot there, but you guys are doing well.
Yeah. So I became quite obsessed after having been to Everest and seeing how sort of challenging the walk just to base camp was. I then became obsessed about the actual mountain itself and some of the feats of endurance it takes to get up the mountain and summit Everest properly. So there's a book called Into Thin Air, which is about a 1996 infamous climb that went very wrong, unfortunately. So it's a bit of a morbid book in one way, but it tells the story of a group of climbers that sadly lost their life on the mountain that year. But it's a kind of a personal experience, and it really talks about the whole landscape of the Everest region. It talks a little bit about the base camp. Yeah, it's a really quite a harrowing read.
Amazing. Thank you very much to the 3 of you. I shall let you go. It's the prize draw, and our lucky winner is going to win a pair of walking poles to take on their next walking adventure. We've selected one of you at random, and the winner is Maggie Maguire. So congratulations, Maggie. We'll be in touch via email to get your prize sorted soon. So massive thank you to my colleagues, both those on the screen and those behind the scene, as always. And thank you to all of you for joining us and for engaging in the question and answer and the chat. It's been lovely to watch those conversations popping up. Please look out for that email in the next few days and with that recording, and they will also be sending out a short feedback questionnaire as well. I hope you've enjoyed yourself today. Goodbye.